Today's essay is Stroke of Genius. Your uh, your boy, DJT, reportedly suffered a mild stroke and during 2025. Of course, no details other than the bullshit about the CAT scan that wasn't an MRI. That my hands are fine. My cankles don't matter. There was a lot of, as is par for the course with this administration, there was a lot of disinformation, but no real information. So, as you know, I am not a medical doctor. Some of you may be, and strokes can affect people in many different ways. None of them good, but it can have affect speech, memory, and other cognitive functions. And once you have one, you're more prone to having a repeat episode. And it got me thinking about uh, presidents and others that had been similarly situated to our dear leader now. And leaders, good and bad. So the two best examples of consequential United States presidents that suffered strokes during time in office. And I'm not talking about after the fact, because many, as as you know, many white men with bad diets over the years will suffer a stroke or a heart irregularity as they age out. Um, but in this case, let's talk about. Let's start on the bright side. FDR and Dwight Eisenhower, right? Two towering figures. FDR, of course, was limited by polio, which came on, later in life than many people are afflicted, but came brought this country through 4 terms and through World War II. We talked a little bit um, about Winston Churchill recently, and those two hand in hand. And Stalin was showing up too, but he was a shit stirrer. He There's no debating the role that the Russian army played in defeating the Nazis. You know, uh, Easy to say now that couldn't have been done without them. But old Joe also suffered from a stroke, but his input was immeasurable. But FDR, I mean, just uh, WPA and the things he did to bring the country out of the Depression, and then the war effort, like few in history. Dwight David Eisenhower was also a giant of a man and a genuine military hero who, in the Second World War, was responsible for planning D-Day and many other major military excursions. He was unequaled in his. He's one of his quotes that I'll mess up, but that in war, I find plans useless, but planning indispensable. And I probably twisted that upside down, but that theme stuck with me. That once you draw up plans, as soon as the before the ink is dry, they're often not as important as they were as you were going through the process of developing the strategy. So that's Dwight David Eisenhower, who was a hell of a golfer as far as presidents go. Used to play with Arnie, right? And he had a pretty substantial stroke while still in office. And then when he left, he had, it seemed, as frequently as he had breakfast, he had either a stroke or a heart attack. He had a lot of challenges, but because he was a tough bastard, he just kept fighting through and was one of the greatest Americans, one of the greatest presidents of all time. And then there are examples that display a lesser level of dignity than the first two examples. And I'll give you Donald J. Trump and Woodrow Wilson. Right? Wilson, of course, his wife, Edith, is one of the most famous first ladies because she was, by default, the president at the end of his second term. Edith was was a gatekeeper, much like Nancy Reagan and like Eleanor Roosevelt when their husbands became infirm. But Edith was intimately involved in making sure that he got the particular kind of information that she thought was important, and the people that she thought needed access to her husband. Now, Wilson, First World War, indisputable. He also was responsible, if not entirely, but a big part in the Federal Reserve Bank, setting up the banking system. He also, in laying the foundation for the UN, wasn't able, League of Nations, but it didn't close the deal on that, but did a lot of work, and that helped our nation a great deal, despite everything that Donald J. Trump is doing to destroy the UN now. But of course, Wilson was a racist on the level of very few that served in office at that particular time. Now, you know, of the times, there's that debate. Can we judge it is unfair intellectually? I'm not worried about being fair to Woodrow Wilson, the memory of, that they stripped his name off of every building at Princeton that it isn't. His name still remains, I think, as I believe, the prize for the outstanding freshman or undergraduate student or something like that has something to do with Woodrow Wilson. But off of the real estate, off of the buildings, they the Republicans, the woke mafia, the ones that the snowflakes will say that, oh, that was an overreaction because these are the same people that think that Robert E. Lee should have his statue in front of the White House. That's there are extremes and there are extremes. But Wilson, in a particularly disturbing and vile manner, in Reconstruction that had begun after the Civil War, and Wilson was born before the Civil War started. So he was a man of those times. He was born in a beautiful little town in Virginia called Stanton, spelled. You would look at it, you'd say Staunton, but it's Stanton. And it is, if you're in that area of I'll call it the Shenandoah Valley, just off the cuff, but really just a beautiful little town that is just a pleasure to visit. Stanton, Virginia. He was born there. He lived in Georgia and South Carolina as he grew up. He was, of course, the president of Princeton at some point, right? And then he went on and served as the governor of New Jersey, and then as president. But throughout his life, he had a legacy of racism that ran really deep, and it wasn't just kind of remaining silent as so many did, not excusing that behavior, not saying that that makes them good people, but he actively reversed progress that had been made after during Reconstruction and reinstituted segregation in the federal government. Right. So, at a time when reforms had been made, where you know drinking fountains, restrooms, and other things such as employment opportunities, a whole range of things, where there had been not it wasn't a dream scenario, but there had been progress, and he reversed that, and not just he didn't just veer off. He made a 180 on most things, and that's quite frankly what made me think of Donald J. Trump, because in a very similar way, the progress that we have made in the what many would say is the post Jim Crow era. And I don't think we're not post racial, we're not post Jim Crow, we're not post anything right now because of the destruction to our country, and particularly to the aggression, the naked aggression against people of color, brown and black people and others. We are in a new Jim Crow was not national policy, it was state and local, but it was the vibe, if you will, right? And the vibe right now is from Stephen Miller and Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance. Um, it is hostile. The DEI, anti woke, whatever bullshit they come up with. These are people that are hostile to diverse communities, not not benign neglect, not kind of sitting off on the sidelines, not just kind of waving at it, not missing opportunities to make progress, but hostile. And that isn't just ICE, but it is also, obviously. Now, our friend Renee Good, who was killed, was whiter than this guy you're looking at from pictures I look. I don't know, didn't know, didn't have the pleasure or the honor of knowing her, but so that was something else completely. That wasn't a racially motivated crime. There are some other motivations that we won't go into because we don't have the time today. But the reason that the officers were in place and agitated to such a level that a crime like this could have been committed has everything to do with race. Everything. But for the decision to vastly expand ICE and Border Patrol, to recruit people and then slash the training schedule, to eliminate any language, sensitivity, much of the firearms training, and much of the background investigations means, and from yesterday's pod, the fact that they're featuring or utilizing um, white supremacist coding in their recruiting. So, as I've mentioned before, I've been in the talent acquisition space for decades. And if you're looking for a particular type of talent, you got to let them know what you're looking for, because otherwise they'll be not confused, but you'll be lighting things on fire, right? You will be wasting time. And what your homegirl, Christy, No, right? What she and her team has done, as I said, with your dollars, as they put together these recruiting campaigns, they embed these messages into their recruiting materials, and they get a particular kind of talent. And I hate to use that word because it seems rather rather too positive for the types of people that they're targeting. But they have a particular mindset and view on race, homeland, right? HH and the like, right? So Woodrow Wilson, as he handed off the mantle of arguably the most racist president of the United States since Woodrow Wilson, would be Donald J. Trump, right? There are other presidents that were not what you would call not what you would call particularly evolved. That's fair. And again, I want to try. Giving grace is just it's it's bad terminology when you're talking about racism. You wouldn't give grace to a racist, but you can understand, right? You can view it in context, which is something we increasingly lose sight of in every aspect of our life. Context is really just about everything. So if, as other presidents were coming up after Wilson, and you look back at Mr. Hoover, and you just you move up through, were the views towards people of color held by Richard Nixon colored by the time that he grew up in? Absolutely. Indisputable. Ronald Reagan? Sure. I'm not going to even bring in Mr. Carter's name because he was as close to a saint as any human being that has ever occupied that office. And we were lucky to have he and his wife. And the amount, I don't have the number, but the amount of homes that he helped through Habitat for Humanity, the things that he did uh, after his presidency will never, well, won't be, won't be done, and nothing will be done by Donald Trump, a man who has never, because he doesn't release his tax records. We don't know about his charitable giving habits, but we can guess. Doing for others that can't help you achieve a financial goal, never been what he's been about. Now, some people will say his money, he can make his own choice. And you're right. But he's not the kind of person you want to lead other human beings. So, yeah. So I'll just kind of rewind, and we'll give acknowledgement to two great leaders that had that particular financial, uh, physical challenge of suffering a stroke with FDR and Dwight David Eisenhower. And then we'll look askance at Woodrow Wilson, and perhaps we'll look a little further down at Donald J. Trump based on his actual behavior and performance today. So, um, pleasure as always, and we'll. I have that the delightful Pooch, who I mentioned yesterday, is looking for attention and being a little bit whiny for an adult male, if you'll excuse me. No gender shaming. Sorry, dude. But wishing you all a beautiful night, and we will uh, ask your indulgence with restacks and such things, and social media tricks that we can use to get this to more individuals, which is greatly appreciated. And we will catch you sometime tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a great night.